my name's Will Boyd. I am originally from Orangeburg, South Carolina, by way of Rockaway, New York. I currently live in Johnson City, Tennessee, and I'm a professional reed player, specializing in saxophones, clarinets, and flutes.
All right, so what are some of your earliest memories of music?
My earliest memories of music is being at living with my parents in Queens with my siblings, and my mother would play music all the time in the house when she was cleaning or randomly doing artwork, which she liked to do a lot of, and we would listen to a lot of Donna Summer disco stuff and a lot of Bill Withers, and then watching cartoons. Watched a lot of Warner Brothers, so I really loved the soundtracks of like the Bugs Bunny cartoons or the Tom and Jerry cartoons, and listening to the big bands that were playing in the background while the cartoons were running.
And who would you say were your earliest musical influences?
My earliest musical influences was interesting because when I was in middle school is when I started first playing saxophone, and I was forced to Can we start over, edit again?
Yeah, just repeat the question, my bad. Is your phone on silent too?
Well, now that you said it, let me go ahead and do that, because it is not.
So who would you say were some of your earliest musical influences?
Okay, my earliest musical influences was very eclectic because of, like I said, my mother was into a lot of different things, and in our house she'd play Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, and we listened to Ray Charles, we listened to all kind of funk stuff, and I dug it all. But I really started taking it seriously when I got in middle school, and that's when I joined the band program and was put on saxophone. I actually wanted to play trombone, but they wouldn't let me, so they just stuck me with the sax, and I had to stick with it. And I think the first saxophone player that really caught my attention was Jill Albright. And I remember watching Video Soul on BET, and seeing him do this Johnny Gill tune, My, with the shiny white silver saxophone and hitting all these altissimo notes, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. I want to do something like that. And everything's history from there.
And so, at what point did you get into jazz?
The point I got into jazz is when I went to high school. We had a big band, and the director, Mr. Dwight McMillan, he was a really big influence on us as far as playing, getting into really more traditional jazz. His good friend, and it was a mentor to a lot of people in my hometown, was Johnny Williams, and Johnny was a bari sax player that played in the bass band. And every now and then he would come to our rehearsals when he was in town or off the road, and he'd bring charts, and we'd have copies of actual bassy charts that we played, and it was really fun to play those charts. And at one point we even got to see bassy band playing at a concert, I think in Orangeburg.
Do you remember some of the first gigs that you played as a musician?
The first gigs I played were more like just private parties, like little balls or dinners or banquets, a lot of banquets. Our big band would play at these banquets, and eventually I remember one of our friends, high school friends, was asking, when are we professionals, because we actually got paid for a gig, and Mr. Mack was like, yeah, did you get paid? And we were like, yeah, well, y'all professionals now. So, and that was hilarious. Another interesting story is I wasn't an improviser until I might have joined the big band my sophomore year, but I didn't improvise. I started improvising until like my junior or senior year of high school. I just remember we had a concert in our spring concert, that's what it was. We had our spring concert, and he brought in some ringers to, kind of help pad the band and play. He had some really strong soloists. And I remember the last tune was like a blues or something, and he just started pointing at different people to play. And he pointed at me to play, and I just got up just to play, and the girl sitting beside me just put her head down like, oh God, And I never even had any interest in improvising, never thought about playing, just decided to just get up and play. And I remember that solo distinctly. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. But it just kind of started me on that path.
And so when you first started playing jazz, who would you say, well, I guess I would say name maybe 3 or 4 of your early jazz influences, and what was it about their playing that you gravitated towards?
My early jazz influences was interesting in the fact that I kind of learned backwards. I started really contemporary and kind of went back. So I mentioned earlier I was really into Gerald Albright, but I remember my high school band director putting me to the side and said, hey man, if you want to start getting into the music and getting these gigs and stuff, this is what you need to do. You need to go out and buy Grover Washington Jr.'s album, Mr. Magic. He's like, you don't have to get nothing else, but just get that particular album. And I didn't know why he was telling me about that, so I went and got it, and to show my age, it was on a cassette tape. And I remember playing the A side, and I can't remember what the first tune was, but the second one was like the Duke Ellington tune, Passion Flower. And I remember thinking, oh, this is kind of weird, but why would he want me to do that? And then I put it on the B side, and it was Mr. Magic and Black Frost. And then I was just like, oh wow. I mean, the funk groove and the sound of Grover's playing and his phrasing over everything, I was blown away. And in fact, I didn't even know what transcription was at the time, but I transcribed Grover's solo on Black Frost, and that was kind of the basis of my playing from then on out. And then from there, I remember an artist, Shanice Williams, kind of pop R&B singer, and she had this song, I Like Your Smile. And I remember the saxophone solo on that just blew me away, and I learned that, and I wanted to get more of the music of that guy. Well, that was Branford Marsalis. And so I went out and, this is before we could just kind of look people up on YouTube or Spotify, and got a cassette called Trio Jeepy, and thinking that it was going to sound like what he played with Shanice. And I was listening to it, and I was like, what is this? I have no idea what type of music he's playing. This sounds insane. It was just him, bass and drums. But, I bought it, so I just kept listening to it over and over again over time, and it started to grow on me. And I was like, you know what? The more I listen to it, the more I dig it. I mean, this is really cool. So I was into Gerald, then Grover, then Branford. And then I think one of my high school friends turned me on to Cannonball Adderley. And, and then from there I went on to really get into Coltrane. Especially, I think My Favorite Things is one of my favorites from him at that time when I was coming up.